For the next hour, they're going to be the views of Bob Chapman, who is actually chatting away with our producer at the present time. But I'm hoping he's going to be on with us in just a moment. At least we have a hookup with him. But Bob has been writing about the bond market. And, the thing is that the average individual doesn't really understand the bond market. The bond market is 10 times the size of the stock market. And this is the very foundation of our capitalistic system. People certainly buy bonds, and then the corporations are able to have the money to actually build the factories to produce the products. And, of course, the bonds have a guaranteed income. The difficulty, of course, that we're having is that people are looking at the income they're getting from the bonds, and they're saying, well, gee, I can get 6% from the bonds. I can only get maybe a 3%, 2% at the bank. I want to go someplace where my money is going to be safe. I am going to invest in bonds. And, of course, they will invest in corporate bonds or government bonds, or certainly bonds of state bonds or municipal bonds. And, I mean, they really think that they're going to have secure as far as their investments are concerned. People are always worried about their money. They said we are really governed by two things. One is fear and the other is greed. And greed gets people into bonds, thinking that they have safety. But they really don't understand. And, of course, this is one of the points that Bob makes in his latest International Forecaster newsletter, is that as interest rates go up, and believe me, interest rates cannot go down. They're already so low now. Certainly they're zero on many of our short-term bonds, but certainly on the very, very low rates of return on many corporate bonds. But when the interest rates begin to go up, the value of the bonds falls. And the people who think that they're going to have security for their money are in for a great surprise. Isn't that right, Bob?
They certainly are.
Will you pick up the story there?
I think what's going to happen here, in spite of the efforts of the Brotherhood of Darkness, the market is going to go down. And the only thing that can make it go up at all would be hyperinflation, and it's questionable now whether we're going to get it or not. And we have to just wait and see. I saw about $40 billion flowing into M2 in the last 2 weeks, so maybe they're taking the bait, and that would keep the market from going down if the money supply, the money and credit moved upward. And I think there's a good chance of that. We may have to wait a while until the market goes down, but I don't think they can take it much higher than 11.2. There's too many sellers out there, and the market's too thin. But bonds are going to catch it sooner or later. Interest rates cannot stay forever close to zero.
And, of course, it was one of the members of the Austrian School of Economics who said, bonds are certificates of guaranteed confiscation. And, of course, that really didn't pan out. I mean, people have made a lot of money on bonds through the years. But when you come to the end of the economic cycle, as we are now, boy, of course, if you are holding bonds and the value of money is destroyed, if you are holding bonds and such that the interest rates begin to rise, while you're facing a dramatic reduction in the value of your life savings. We'll be right back with Bob Chapman. Well, this is Dr. Stan. Our guest is Bob Chapman, and we're talking about what's going on financially. Bob says he thinks that the Greek currency is going to go down, that Greece is going to withdraw from the European Union, devalue their currency, and of course, what's going to happen as far as the banks. Well, Bob, I thought we were giving a couple of $100 billion to this whole fund over there, the IMF, and certainly Germany's putting in money, everybody's putting in money so they can bail out Greece, so Greece can pay back the banks. And we're really giving money to the IMF so that they can give it to Greece so they can pay off the banks. After all, the banks have to get their money, don't they?
That's right. And there's major demonstrations going on in Germany regarding this. The Germans are very unhappy. As a matter of fact, I did radio, television, and an interview which will the mass media in Germany today, in Dortmund, which is about 2 hours from Frankfurt and probably about an hour from Köln, which Americans call Cologne. And they wanted me to do the interview in German. I said, gee, I haven't spoken intricate German for 50 years. I think we better do it in English. But anyway, what we're doing is getting the word out over there, and it is devastating. It's no wonder Zbigniew Brzezinski says we get some serious problems, and we are getting to them. It took us a long, long time, right, Stan? 50 years.
Right. That you're talking about Brzezinski's talk to the Council on Foreign Relations. I forgot where it was, but he was talking about how
Montreal.
Beg pardon?
Montreal.
And everybody, how terrible it was that the public was beginning to wake up to what they were doing. So at least we know that these people of great wealth who betrayed our country, who's taken us from war to war, who killed millions of people, they're really concerned that the people are waking up. They might even be held responsible for their crimes, because Zbigniew Brzezinski has publicly admitted he actually precipitated the Afghan war, where hundreds of thousands of Soviet troops and certainly Afghans died in that war that he created. And when you create a war and you take credit for it, you should be held responsible for the deaths that occur. So anyway, Bob, certainly as far as the economy is concerned, why certainly Bernanke, our secretary, the head of the Federal Reserve System, says that things are really going to get better in time. What do you think about that?
Well, I think he's probably conversing with the tooth fairy.
And of course, as you pointed out, all of his predictions are 100% wrong.
Wrong. I mean, this guy is a super loser, but he can't be a winner. He took a tough position, let's put it that way. I did want to say something about Afghanistan. There was an article in the New York Times today revealing that the United States government has discovered all kinds of minerals in Afghanistan. Not just the poppies and the marijuana, which they make over $300 billion a year on, but real resources. We'll have to check back, but I wrote about that 3 times, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, and 7 years ago, and nobody wanted to hear it. And I had it all doped out, exactly what they had. The government just didn't discover it. They knew before they went in there what was there. So they went in to the natural resources, political positioning, which is really very important, and to turn the heroin and then grow marijuana so that they can fund their black operations.
And I think it's so significant that when the Taliban, the wicked Taliban, were in power, they shut down the opium fields. They just really, there was hardly any opium being grown there. But now that the courageous Americans are there, why the fields are blooming and the American troops are guarding the fields. And we say, well, we couldn't destroy the fields. Why? How would the farmers make money? Oh my goodness, we couldn't destroy the opium crops. No, we're going to send our boys over there and they're going to guard the fields so that they'll be available for production for the Central Intelligence Agency, which is the largest purveyor of drugs anywhere in the world, and everybody knows it, except for the American people. But if you doubt that, go up on the internet and just type in on your search engine CIA selling drugs, and you'll find references to it. In fact, poor Gary Webb, formerly a Pulitzer Prize-winning reporter for the San Jose Mercury, wrote some series of articles on that. And when he committed suicide after he was fired and blacklisted on every newspaper, he had to shoot himself in the head twice to make sure he was dead. Ladies and gentlemen, these things really happen in the United States, and you're not supposed to talk about the fact that the Central Intelligence Agency is the largest seller of drugs in the world, and, of course, that the American troops are in Afghanistan not to stop drug production, but to protect it. because we don't want the wicked Taliban to get back in there and stop the production of opium. Well, certainly recently, Bob, I've noted that there have been reports coming out of the military there that we're never going to be able to win the war in Afghanistan. No matter what we do, we're never going to be able to be victorious, and we're just going to keep pouring more men and more weapons and more money and killing more people. But we're never going to win that war, and our leaders know that.
And they don't care. I've had emails and phone-ins on one of the shows that I do by about 7 Marines and military personnel, Army, that have told me that their job is to guard the poppies for the government.